All right, American history students, let's get into lesson two. And this is going to be life in the roaring 20s. You could also call this pop culture in the roaring 20s. And you're going to see why the 20s were roaring here shortly. So, as always, I want you to be listening for the causes and effect that go along with life in the roaring 20s. So here's a definition of the time period. So it says the 1920s in the United States were called roaring because of the exuberant, freewheeling, popular culture of the decade. The roaring 20s was a time when many people defied prohibition, that's going to be lesson three, indulged in new styles of dancing and dressing, and rejected many traditional and moral standards. So you're going to get the dancing and the dressing today. You're going to get the moral standards in lesson four. But if you had to think about what roaring really means, I would say thriving or living their best life. And you're going to notice life in the 20s was awesome. People are going to be having not a care in the world because they just got done with war and they're going to have some things going for them in life. So, new trends that are happening during the 20s, you're going to notice that technology is leading the charge. You're going to notice that depending on where you lived, your quality of life was going to be pretty high, and the economy was rocking and rolling, which I'm going to be talking about again later on. But you're also going to see Americans have a lot more leisure time or free time. And why was that? Because they're working less and they're getting paid a lot more. So, where this all kind of combines is that when you don't have a job or don't have to work for the job and you're getting paid more and you have extra money to spend, you're going to want to go out and you're going to want to do things. All the while, farming, you had to work sunrise to sunset, which is hard, obviously. So here's the first question for you. What factors went into the early 1920s culture? So what were people doing? They were going to the movies. So this doesn't sound like a big deal to us in 2022 when I'm recording this. However, movies during the time were silent, meaning no sound came out. You had to read the dialogue. So during this time, you're going to notice that movies are actually going to start having sound and dialogue for the first time. That's why they were used to be called talkies. But you're going to notice that millions and millions of people are going to start jumping at these movies. So you're going to see that they're going to show up, hear it, and they're going to enjoy themselves. So, where this all kind of meets a big deal is that this is brand new technology. So, you're going to notice that that's where they're going. And they're starting to buy radios. So, how are they affording such lavish things? Is they're buying them on credit. So, there's going to be more radios inside of homes than any other time during the 1920s because information can travel faster. They can listen to music, they can listen to the news, and everybody's hearing the same thing at the same time. So mass media is created. If you ever seen Christmas Story, you can hear Ralphie listening to Little Orphan Annie, and this was a kind of a big deal because this was entertainment in their home. And what else were they listening to? Sporting events. So some of these sportsters you might be seeing here, you might have heard of, especially Babe Ruth, but other ones maybe not so much. But I mean, in the 1920s, this was a big deal because these were ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and it kind of told people to think outside of their life, dream bigger than what they got, and it kind of provided inspiration for them. So, question for you: what new technology was now readily available in American homes in the 1920s? So, who else was killing it during the time? His name was Charles Lindbergh. So, he is going to actually take a bet and he is going to win a $10,000 bet because he's the first person to fly nonstop across the Atlantic Ocean. So, in his plane, the Spirit of St. Louis, he's going to load up, pack a couple sandwiches, put on a male diaper, and 33 hours later, after taking off in New York, he's going to land in Paris. And again, collected his bet when he came home. And then anything that men can do, women can do better. 5 short years later, Amelia Earhart's going to be the first woman to do this very same flight. Now, don't hold the time difference against Charles Lindbergh. 5 years in aeronautics, that's pretty good technology boost there. So, really, good for her. But why this is all such a big deal is Amelia Earhart's going to try to push the envelope. She's going to try to be the first person to fly around the world. Unfortunately, she gets lost. She crashes at sea, most likely, but really nobody knows exactly what happened to her. But why this matters to us is because going back, she's kind of living out there. She's kind of being a hero for women during the time, and you're going to notice that she was an inspiration for some. So, question for you. Who was the first person to cross the Atlantic Ocean by plane? All right, so speaking of women, they're going to take on some new roles during this time. So, once being only expected to be in the house, being a wife, being a mother, now they're going to cut their hair, they're going to cut their dresses, and they're going to live life to the fullest. And they're going to be known as flappers. Okay, the ones that chose to cut their dresses, chose to wear makeup, go out in public and drink and smoke and all this fun stuff, and basically go against what was unladylike, if you will. So where else were they kind of making their mark? It's in politics. They're actually getting involved more and more with running with governors. You're going to see they're going to be senators, they're going to be congress people. So women are really thriving during the 1920s. And you got to keep in mind, they just got the right to vote in 1920. So it only makes sense that they're going to make that evolution change, I guess you would say. But again, as I said before, not all women wanted to be out there and doing all these new things, so they stayed home. And their life got better easier too because of the technology, going back to before. New technologies are making their home life easier and better, if you will. So, case in point example, a vacuum cleaner right here. So, you're going to notice that they no longer have to sweep and sweep and sweep and clean the rugs that they once did. Now they're going to save a whole lot of time by using this latest and greatest technology. So, this is also going to be case in point with other things like the wash machine, electric irons, and so on and so forth, where their life is going to get easier, like what technology does. So, a question for you: women that took over their own lives and freedoms during the 1920s were called what? Also, during this time, you're going to see other cultures are going to start popping up. And this is where you're going to see literature is going to be coming into new ways. You're going to see artwork is going to start coming around in new ways. And this is where they're going to go against what's known as basically traditional art. So you're going to see people pop up like F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, Sinclair Lewis, and they're going to be writing books that are going to be around for years and years to come. You're also going to see African American culture are going to be making their way into the United States culture a little bit more. So I take you back to the Great Migration of during World War I. African Americans are moving north to get these new jobs, and they're also bringing obviously their way of life with them. And you're going to notice that that tension is going to be now be lifted with all of this. So these new cultures that they're bringing is mostly going to be music, and it's going to be the poetry, and it's going to be the very same things that we talked about with the white playwrights earlier. So with this new jazz music, this new way of expressing themselves, a lot of people are going to get let into the African American way of life. They're going to understand them a little bit more. So it's going to help kind of break down a few of the racial walls, if you will. So case in point, Cab Calloway right here was a very popular musician during the time. If you ever seen Blues Brothers, he was dancing in there and singing in there, and it was really kind of cool if you ever get a chance to see it. So, jazz music, as I once said before, that this is going to become incredibly popular in these new illegal bars that are going to be popping up called speakeasies, which I'll talk about in lesson 3. But people that are defying the law and going and drinking illegally, also in lesson 3, are going to become super duper popular. So, Louis Armstrong, Bix Burdecki down here, Bix known as Bix Race here in the Quad Cities. But they're going to become super popular, as I said. And this is what's going to help bridge all this racial tension, just because people enjoyed it and they're going to listen to it on their new radios in their homes. So, question for you. I didn't say it in my lecture, so you have to go back and look at it, but it's the term that's given to African American culture that was infused into American culture during the time was called. And because of the new style of music made popular during this time, this era was also known as